So congratulations to the Glen Lake Association from our community partners. I'm going to welcome Rob Carner back to the screen to share his always popular State of the Watershed address. I, for one, always look forward to hearing what Rob has to share about watershed protection efforts that are made possible through our many partnerships and the dedication of staff and volunteers. Rob, you're up.
Thank you very much, Trish. So here is the state of the watershed as we look at it in the eyes of the people who live around here and in the year 2020. Every year at the summer solstice, we go out and look at all the waters coming into our watershed. And so we have 11 inlets, and we use our hydro lab and we look at the sites to make sure that we have an initial screening about how the water quality looks. And this map shows you the places where we actually collect this data, and it's been going on for the last 10 years. And so we're very excited to report that the water looks pretty good. And what we look at when we say it's pretty good is that we match the incoming water with the water that's in the lake. And if they match up pretty closely, then we're excited to say that things are looking good. We also take the hydro lab out and we use it for recording all kinds of parameters. The most notable thing is that on Little Glen in the 4th of July, we had the hottest temperature of water I've ever seen, a water temperature of 84 degrees. Although it didn't last very long, it is notable. And also we've been tracking the underwater scenes in Big Glen where we have had a no oxygen situation. And we're trying to make sure that that is being documented so that we can look at it from a climate change point of view. These are the sites where we take the hydro lab out every 2 weeks, year round. And of course, the deep basins, we avoid going there when the ice is on. But this is a great program. We've been doing it since 2004. We also look at the plankton studies. And it's important to look at this because if you look at the base of the food chain and you see problems, then everything becomes problematic up the food chain. So this has been something we've been doing for a long time, and we're looking at it from a diversity point of view. This is the places where we do our plankton samples, and it's really encouraging to find out that other lake associations like Lime Lake is wanting to do it as well. These are the kinds of organisms that we look for. I've got a sheet of paper that on a spreadsheet that allows me to find out what it is that we're seeing showing up, who's showing up and who's absent and taking roll. We're also working at a state level with the Cooperative Lakes Monitoring Program. We've been doing this since, I think, 2002 or maybe even earlier than that, maybe even the 1990s. And so this is kind of our state-funded program. Last year, there was a snag in the program funding, but we continue to do Secchi disc readings, and we'll probably get back into 2021 mode with a full functioning program. If you don't know what a Secchi disc is, this is where you get in a boat, you lower down a disc, and with the sunlight coming down, you measure how far down you can see it. And this is all programs or data that we have been tracking for many, many years, and we're looking for trend lines. And the lake seems to be getting more and more clear as we move forward in time. We're also keeping an eye out for the plants that live on land that are not allowed to be here. We don't give them free rein. So the yellow iris, Phragmites, purple loosestrife, and coltsfoot are our main target species. If you don't know what yellow iris looks like, this is really exploding, especially on Fisher Lakes and also around Big and Little Glen. So if you see this and it looks exactly like this, please consider digging it out and removing it because it's a fast spreading invasive. We also, with our drone survey, have been picking up colonies of purple loosestrife. And you can see that down there on the shoreline next to some Joe Pye weed. We're also looking at aquatic invasive species. Now, these are the plants that grow underwater. And the latest is that we have been tracking curly leaf pondweed, and we don't see it taking hold, so that's a good sign. We seem to think that the native aquatic plants are in good shape. We're really ever vigilant about the threatening invasives like Eurasian water milfoil, starry stonewort, and hydrilla. These are the most likely to invade, and so we always are on the watch, looking for things that we hope we don't find. This is just a quick snapshot of some of the GoPro imagery that we're creating as a catalog for what's in the water. And this is a case in Big Fisher where we're seeing a great diversity of healthy plants, and that bodes well for the health of the ecosystem. We're also monitoring this in a variety of ways. We take a look at the glens, the Brooks Lake, and the Fisher Lakes. We don't find any invasives in 2020. That's a good sort of report. And we also use a monitoring program through the CLMP called the Rake Toss. And that is also done in conjunction with the shoreline survey via the drone. So if you want to know where we're monitoring the aquatic plants, these are circles in our watershed where we pay particular attention to what's growing there. And again, the report is very good. This is my colleague, Laura Wiesen. She and I both together canvass a lot of the water through snorkel hikes. And you can be assured that if there's something there that we see that's out of kilter, then we're going to certainly hone in on it and make sure that if we have invasives that we'll catch it quick and we'll keep the minimum investment to keep our lakes the way we'd like them to be. I've already talked about Discovery Boat program. And in 2020, we didn't have any in-person program face-to-face, but we will likely give you a chance to do the 2020 program through virtual programming. So if you go to the Glen Lake YouTube channel, you're going to see a variety of videos that we've produced. And thanks to the Basayo family, this program will go for years to come. If you look at the YouTube channel for Glen Lake, you're going to see a variety of videos. Some are long, some are short. I invite you to go and look at each one of these, take some popcorn, gather the family around the flat screen, and enjoy the information that we have generated that we think will be very valuable for you to understand and appreciate our watershed. Now I'm going to turn to Hatlam Creek subwatershed and let you know that the pond, as you know, is being monitored for the fill rate. We dredged it in 2014. The next planned dredge date, according to the calculations from our engineering firm that we're working with, is 2029. That number is not necessarily cast in stone. We're looking at the dam and making sure that it can handle a severe rain event like we saw in the middle of the state in Midland area. And we're also looking at the water that turns the tea-colored water from the tannins. We know that that happens. We've never boasted any kind of promise to anybody that that water would not turn that brown color, but we have, I think, made great progress in the siltation rate of the Hatlam Creek as it flows. This is an aerial view from a drone of the recent event of a June rainfall of about 2.5 inches. And of course, the water turns brown. But what's interesting in this picture is that you can see the bottom. So yes, the brown water is there, but the bottom is also visible through the tea-colored water. And we have tested this water. It's likely that there'll be some elevated E. coli levels, but by and large, we are keeping a lot of that silt in the pond that we will then dredge in a future dredge event. We also work with the state. We have a 10-year-old plan called the Watershed Protection Plan, and we're going to update that. We have a 12-member steering committee that meets quarterly. And over the course of 2 years, we're going to position our Glen Lake Association to be the very best that it can be. It also puts us in a position to get future grant funding. And we are getting assistance from the state to the tune of $25,000, and that's a great thing. One of the things that we're promoting in this plan is the idea that we have a surface watershed, and this is delineated by the white line around Glen Lake. And watch on the lower right of the delineation, because the surface drainage is a little bit different, and in fact, quite a bit different than the groundwater. So if I'm going to go back, here's the surface water, here's the groundwater. This is all the land and groundwater that flows into Glen Lake. So we're going to introduce that concept into our watershed protection project, and we're going to make sure that people are aware that there is two kinds of watershed delineations. And with regards to the local governments, we have 4 townships in our watershed: Glen Arbor, Empire, Casson, and Cleveland. And we want to protect the surface and groundwater in all 3 of these townships as they line up inside the surface watershed. So we have been working for 3 years to try to get this watershed overlay in place. And you might ask, well, what is an overlay? Let me just give you a quick graphic of that. You have the property owners, and then under that or above that, you have the what we call the underlying zoning regulations that exist today. And the overlay is an added set of provisions that allow for exclusive watershed protection. So in a township, the overlay does not pertain to the entire township boundaries, but only the watershed boundaries. And you'll hear more about that and read about that on our website. And as far as the septic, that is one of the things that we can do to control the water quality. We have, fortunately, 15 volunteers that in 2020 gave their opportunity to use their well water and their surface water as sites for our water collection. And I'm going to show you a map of that in just a moment. We're also going to be looking at the septic system drain field using a drone, flying it at night and looking at infrared camera imagery. Just to let you know that this is not just in 2020 that we're doing this with 15 volunteers, but we're also allowing this to be a multi-lake and a 3-year study. So next year, we already have lined up 15 volunteers, and actually they've actually given us a donation towards that 2021 study, and then there'll also be a 2022 study. This is all in attempts to try to perfect our ways of determining whether septic is affecting our drinking water as well as our swimming and recreational waters, surface waters. So this is a map showing you the 15 volunteers that lined up and said, yes, I want to be a part of this study. And as I said before, and looking at 2021, we've already got 15 people lined up, and then we're going to have another hopefully 20 or 15 people in 2022. And then as far as the Crystal River, which is of course in our watershed, we're looking at how the stream crossings interface with the highways. So we have 4 new bridges that are being planned to replace the round circular culverts. And we're going to try to do an improved health of the river, as well as improve the health of the fish habitat, and as well as improve the safety for paddlers. And the driver in this program, and we're working together, we the Glen Lake Association, is the Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa Chippewa Indians. What a great partnership we have with them. And so you might ask, well, where are these 4 bridges? If you look in the upper right, there's Tucker Lake and the Tucker Creek. We also have one over there on 675, which is affectionately known as Shoot the Tube. And then we have 2 more crossings on 675 as it almost comes to connection with M22. And then as regard to Swimmer's Itch, as you've been hearing and learning about perhaps, or if it's for the first time, you should know that we always thought for years and years, decades even, that the singularity water or Swimmer's Itch life cycle went through common mergansers. But in 2019, we found that there were 2 other life cycles that were playing out fairly strongly. And we only learned that through the sophistication of our DNA testing, where we could species differentiate which worms and which ducks were and geese were following suit and entering into the water with our itch story. So we've been running samples again this year to see if we can replicate the kind of results we found in 2019. And what we have found is that we can now determine a parasitic profile of a lake, including Glen Lake, for a given year, and to see how that profile might change from year to year. And so you might ask, well, where are we collecting water samples around the lake? And these are the 10 sites. And each of these sites are taken up by a group of 5 volunteers that go to 2 sites each. And they gather worm samples and take it to the lab. And for a span of literally from May to October, we're going to be looking at the picture of 2020 and seeing what's going on. Just a quick little summary of the mallards, the mergansers, and the Canada geese on the left. You can see that all these different snails in the middle are involved in the life cycles, and all the different worm species on the right. So you can see that it's a far more complex problem than we ever imagined. And not only that, but to underscore the fact that the migratory common mergansers we now know are a significant contributor. And so our trap and relocate program really has been in question as to its efficacy. And so we're really focused on prevention. And we get all this information by filtering the water, running it through a DNA testing program called qPCR. And the thanks to the Freshwater Solutions and the team at the University of Alberta with Dr. Hannington, we really have made a lot of progress. So this really now focuses our Swimmer's Itch story on prevention. And we now are taking an aggressive multimedia effort to promote prevention of the itch. And we're going to provide a variety of strategies out there, not all of which have been proven. And when we prove that these are good, we're going to really promote them in 2021. And what I'm hoping is that the association will take on a new research bent where we will focus on the prevention strategies, put it into a research mode, and really come out in 2022 with an idea that we really now know what works and what science proves what strategy is the most effective. Some of those strategies include a skimmer where you can walk this net around and literally take all the worms off the surface of the 1 or 2 millimeters of water where the worms reside and literally clean out or kind of like vacuum out your area that you're going to swim in. You're going to greatly reduce the itch. And this graph in the upper left actually shows the before and after effects of the worm counts before and after raking. So this is inexpensive, easy to do, and certainly worth our time to discover how effective it might be in the future. We also have a baffle system where you simply know which side of the baffle to swim on. In this case, the wind's coming from behind those 2 people on the dock, and the baffle is collecting all the worms, so the best place to swim would be on the right. And then I want to jump now to the shoreline survey for 2020. This is a way we can kind of map out what's going on around the shoreline as it relates to the water's edge. And one of the things that we did that we thought might be useful is we've always walked the shoreline to look for coltsfoot. And this year we tried to take an extra effort to fly the drone slow and low and see if we can't pick up some terrestrial invasives. We also are working with the State Department of Eagle. And this is a case where we are the so-called model for the state, and we're writing up exactly how we do our shoreline surveys. And this will likely be what, if any lake association in the state, wants to go forward and do a shoreline survey, that they're going to have to follow the Glen Lake model for getting funding. And so we feel honored and privileged and certainly excited about sharing the way in which we look at this information. And as I alluded to before, this is the north shore of Little Glen. This is a case where we typically walk the east shore of Big Glen and the south shore to look for coltsfoot, but now we're looking for it with a drone. This might be faster, easier, and more accurate. And then we're also looking for cladophora. If you remember back in the day in our history, when I started some 40 years ago, we were doing cladophora surveys. Now we do it by drone. So it's much faster, easier, and certainly archivable. This is a picture of drone footage of some coltsfoot. It shows up pretty easily when it's in bloom. So we think that that might be the way to look for it in the future. And we also are taking a look at the next step, like flying over shorelines before and after different blooms, or before and after ice jacking in the spring to look for erosion. We may be looking for other infestations that are on the horizon. We have a invasive called donkey tail spurge, and of course, yellow iris and autumn olive. So this drone really saves us a lot of time, effort, and money, and we're far more accurate. And all this work is archivable. And thanks to Dennis Wyan, he has done a fantastic job of helping us hone our skills with drone work. And so we want to keep our eyes wide open underwater